pleasure to meet I. Welcome to iGrid. Actually, I think I met I before. Where and what did I publish? I publish myself openly on FB, Tinder, Tumblr, Twitter, etc. I started with Gmail, Agatha Valkyrie Ice at gmail.com. What was I password? Sinner2000 or Sinner2001? I keep forgetting. I know. I think I commented on this post of 50 cents. I really couldn't comprehend, so suspicious.
Give her a dollhouse, you're gonna give her
Can't relate
50 cents. So
50
you're kind of
cents
teaching and nurturing at that point.
When we
later
have a
on,
little boy, we give him a car to play
have a
with.
family,
Little
hopefully.
girl,
You know,
we
for little
gotta
boys,
give
they don't want the
her
actual
a
cars that
baby.
they see. So this is why you
and give her
understand
a dollhouse,
why I'm a
and we
little
gonna give
jacked
her a
up now.
cooking set.
Because I have
So
finance to have these things. I actually want the real cars
at that point.
instead of the toy cars.
And later on, she's gonna be
show you around and
reproducing
check out
our
the rest of my
family,
crib.
hopefully. Strange. Anyway, where was I? Coming back to the point, as I know private publishing doesn't exist any longer. I now know I get read hi, and I am published at the same time. I voice as diverse as I fingers to select what I want to have read and published, and by I is I greatest challenge, really, a responsibility for now and the future. If I tolerate what I see, our children will be normalized. This distinction between the personal and political, or between private and public, is I self of fiction, designed to support an oppressive status quo. Our most personal acts are, in fact, continually being scripted by hegemonic social conventions and ideologies. I is not an expression of what I is, but is rather something that I does. I is not a social imposition on a neutral body, but rather a mode of self-making through which I become socially intelligible. I just thought of Thesmorphia and Adonia, these rituals aim to dignify the then cold female body, a distinction and description that touches I awkwardly. I wonder if I was better just to forget I divided histories. But anyways, if I have already started, I will tell of the injustice. The Adonia festivities were there for female groups to gather and expand their communal space. Female space was then strongly defined, and public was not I territory. Greek women were confined to houses because of their supposed physiological defects. This Greek historian Herodotus contrasted the reasonableness of I civilization in doing so to the strangeness of the Egyptians, observing that in I manners and customs the Egyptians seem to have reversed the ordinary practices of mankind. For instance, women go to the market and engage in trade while men stay home and do the weaving. I said, in another one's texts, a husband enjoins I wife, I business will be to stay indoors. And what is more, the ancient Greek house had high walls and few windows. When money permitted, I rooms were oriented around an inner courtyard. Within the house, something like the purdah system of the classic Muslim household prevailed. Married women never appeared in the angin, the room in which the guests were entertained. At the drinking parties given in the angin, only women, slaves, prostitutes, or foreigners appeared. Wives and daughters lived in the room or rooms known as the Gunakayam. If the household were prosperous enough, these occupied the second story, a further remove from the daily intrusions of the street upon the courtyard. Oh, so glad this is over. Space is totally of I. Look here, outside on the street, status updates in the air, checking into another spatial analogy of information exchange. Sometimes hard to reach through tutorials, encryption, and principles. I is generous to be outdoors, watched by 1,000 eyes, recording I for the future, and I actions to be interpreted as an office job. I need a private veranda above the ground, a place for breath of fresh air, out of sight for the casual onlooker, but great for public announcements. Okay, let I show I around, come through I portal. Let I not linger on a platform made out of a tweet into a corporate versions of public space. I are not stored in a cloud, opaque or translucent to whomever. I think EOs are a great advance and adventure. Imagine images that change to reflect the upcoming weather or melt at certain rate based on the temperature outside, like a gently shifting forest of endlessly shimmering sunset. I also see glimpses of the PC era, followed by an era of calm technology, in which computing happened at the periphery of eye-awareness. I prefer how the new machines are so clean and light, feather-like, cloud-like, topped by swan-like clumps of fair-weather cumulus, lifted on the shoulders of the air above the crown of coral D. I would carve into clouds, unicorns, and seahorses, the portraits of presidents and film stars, lizards and exotic birds. I engineer the cloud sculptors of Coral D. Are really the biggest sun worshippers meditating a new scientific revolution associated with the night dream of post-industrial, post-hypermodern, post-fluid, post-gender society. What do I see when I look at these images? I believe I see in there a choice not only of spaces, sites, and environments, but also of bodies, subjectivities, and modes of interactions with others. The cyber island is not merely providing new experiences. I has changed what humans perceived ourselves to be at a very fundamental and personal level. On Cyber Island, there's no longer any need to move about in a body like the one I possesses at the other end of reality. This reel is saturated with the spaces of projection, possibility, and the new that I now designate as virtual. The libidinal band of virtual and real is the space of emergence of the new, the unthought, the unrealized, which at every moment loads the presence of the present with supplementarity, redoubling a world through parallel universes that might have been. Oh, how exciting I are getting close to the islands. Islands translate to I most memorable experiences. The last time I chose on an island tangent, I discovered that there are continental islands and oceanic islands, and that continental islands are accidental derived islands, separated from a continent. born of disarticulation, erosion, fracture. I survived the absorption of what once now contained I. Oceanic islands are originary, essential islands. Some are formed from coral reefs and display a genuine organism. Others emerge from underwater eruptions, bringing to the light of day a movement from the lowest depths. Some rise slowly, some disappear and then return, leaving I no time to annex I. These two kinds of islands, continental and originary, reveal a profound opposition between ocean and land I could never choose. Continental islands serve as a reminder that the sea is on top of the earth, taking advantage of the slightest sagging in the highest structures. Oceanic islands, that the earth is still there. These elements are in constant strife, displaying a repulsion for I another. In this I find nothing to reassure I. The corridor is submerged in oceanic waters. Islands, islands, islands. In another context, I see there are allegorical, artificial islands, such as the Palm and World Islands of Dubai, the 8th, 9th, 10th wonder of the world, that has no reason to exist, save for the real estate ploy that marks I morphogenesis. Oh, I've read about private property before. Couldn't get myself to believe in. The Dubai Islands' allegorical forms respond to market trends, real estate speculation, and a better lifestyle. This is what I would call a willed island, or the island of desire. Fantasy islands, islands as constructions of artificial worlds, and as worlds of artifice. I see islands as a fantastic image of the spaces of otherness that are neither here, there, that are simultaneously physical and mental, such as the space of a phone call, or the moment when I see myself in the mirror. If I understand space as a given set of meanings, then I naturally assume an existing relation between spaces and subjects. But perhaps there are moments, conditions of space, in which subjectivity relates to space through an incompleteness, through infinitely incomplete gestures. I just read, I claims that architecture itself may function as a measured, calculated economy. Indeed, in my earlier writings, I developed a rather banal quasi-psychoanalytic understanding of the skyscraper and of architectural functioning as phallic structure and an aggressive access to the feminine sky. I scrapes. As first I define I, architecture is that which places I midway between the monkey and the machine. I would seem to represent merely an intermediary stage within the morphological development between monkey and building. Architecture represents an intermediary between the animal and the mechanical, retaining some of the traces of I in human, animal origin, as well as the anticipation or movement towards the fully mechanized, the reign of authoritarian control. In this sense, architecture, as I describes I, represents not the physiognomy of the people or of culture as a whole, but of bureaucratic and petty officials, and the spirit of excess is perhaps best represented in the destruction of monumental architecture rather than in any positive architectural production. Probably that's why I always saw skyscrapers as flaccid, incomplete structures, even though I are usually considered signs of success, steel-framed declarations of triumph. But I can be equally associated with corporate hubris, architectural ego, and recession, the latter tallied via the skyscraper index, which plots the striking correlation between the completion of a new world's tallest building and the arrival of a global economic downturn. The failure of Gherkin was just one of the examples, made profitable by changes in currency as exchange rates. I was recently put into receivership and is now up for sale at an estimated price of... I may yet recover, of course, but for now I joins the already long list of skyscraping architecture's most conspicuous flops. Agatha turns and points towards the image of myself. Agatha. Then seeing skyscrapers as crumbling down, I ask, what are the conditions of the political and existential break at a time in which the production of subjectivity represents the primary and most important capitalist production?